Hey YouTube, welcome to another episode. I was about to say issue, another episode of the Tarot Study series. So today we're going to be talking about the Magician, angles, light. Yes, that's the Magician. That's not a very good with the glossy, but you get the idea. So the Magician. What is the Magician? The Magician is actually my birth card, and I think I found that immediately when I found that out. I was like, yeah, it seems good. And then I started to feel that it was kind of intimidating, or like that it felt like a high bar. I think because I felt like the Magician contains a lot of like willpower and focus and action, and that felt daunting to me. It felt like there are times in my life where I've really been that, and then it felt daunting to me right now at this stage in my life when I have issues with energy and issues with motivation. But I think that's not really what the Magician is or what the Magician has to be. I would sum up all the different nuances of the Magician, some of which we're going to talk about here, as supported flow. The Magician is all about being really in a flow state. We talk about, like sometimes you will hear people in business or like productivity spaces talking about the idea of a flow state, really being like in it. And the Magician is that with the added element of support, whether that's divine support, support of your own skills and tools, support of people around you. So supported flow is a keyword that I really like for the Magician. Sarah Chappell talks about the energy of the Magician not being like a grasping energy, but being a very fluid energy. You're not trying super hard, you're just doing it. You're in flow. It's all about leveraging what you already have and conscious creation. So the Magician is a card of creation. It's a very active card. It's a very conscious card. It involves like communication, broadcasting, putting things into the physical world, manifesting, but manifesting using the right tools, using the four elements. Often the imagery of the Magician card shows all four elements. In fact, this is one of the cards where when I was looking through my collection to pick different cards that I wanted to highlight in these videos, I noticed that Magician is very similar in a lot of decks. You've got the elements of four elements, and then you've got the wand up, and you've got the hand down, and there's that like as above so below thing, and you've got all the elements represented. So that's important. Also, divine support is important. So the pulling from above and manifesting earthly. And the Magician, I think, it's like the Magician is number one. It's channeling that full energy, but it's also interesting because the Magician can use any of the other cards in either arcana as tools. So what tools the Magician might use, what tools you might use as the Magician may come up in other positions in a reading, but the Magician has lots of options. I like what Michelle T says in her book, that Magician energy is where you're cultivating your interests and your obsessions to the point that it kind of looks like magic. And I think that's a great way to think of it. In my experience as a tech person, people would always say this to me. They'd always be like, oh my God, it's magic. You made magic happen. Like, that's like, Avery will make the magic happen and things will appear. And it's silly and it's a joke, but I actually really started to embrace that. And when I started to consider using the word witch personally, I have kind of like mixed feelings about that word, but like tech witch makes a lot of sense to me, because I do think that sometimes having skills or like specific skills, specific resources, it looks like magic to other people. And what is magic is a very sort of nebulous question. So I like the idea that the Magician can just be like, you are so good at your thing that it looks like magic. It is specifically like a really focused kind of energy. It's focused work, so it's that flow state where you're like very single-minded on the thing. It can be a kind of facilitating energy, or like it's a creative force. What it's not about is learning. So the Magician is very much about doing. It's something that you already have the skills for. It's not something where you're kind of unsure or you don't have the skills for it. it's really like doing what you are here for, what you are here to do. I mentioned communication, like bringing something into the world. Like when the magician comes up, it's often saying like, you need to birth that shit. Like even if something has been simmering forever and the magician comes up, it's like, okay, you need to make that real. It is channeling like the raw energy of the Fool channeled through that wand, and it involves an element of trust. So the divine support is not just support, but it's also an element of trust that the right thing will come through. So you may not always know exactly what form something will take when you manifest, but you trust that the right thing will come through, and that's part of the magician as well. It's a combination of having really strong intentions and also believing in yourself and doing the thing. But Kara Wittner talks about the magician energy as when something that's ethereal becomes tangible, with the example of the way like the structure of a large cathedral can show us the majesty of that charged space that's inside. And I love that image because I think, it's like you make something tangible and then it can sometimes show you what's intangible. It can show you energy. And so again, like if you're talking about the example of technology, like you might not think of technology as magic, but if you do think that there's energy in the world involved in creation, then maybe something as practical as a piece of technology can show that energy to someone, or can help them access something in themselves. I also really like, Bakar Wittner mentions the, describes the magician as handyman, like who can kind of like fix all sorts of things, or can just like get in there and do it. And I think that's good because sometimes a magician comes up and it just suggests like you need to do some creative problem solving. You need to, like, you can figure it out. You just need to figure it out. If you get this card and you're not really sure what it's referring to, there's not an obvious thing that you need to manifest or something that you're working on, you can think about like what needs to be birthed right now. Is there something that you've been thinking about that needs to be made manifest? If you get this card after a particular transformation in your life, then it can be a sign, because again, the tarot is not linear, so it's number one, but like you can come back to number one. So it can be a sign that after a big life transformation, that it's time to take some skills you've learned, maybe through some of the other cards, and manifest into the world with those skills. Cassandra Snow talks about the magician in a really interesting way of being kind of like knowing who you are and really being ready to live in your identity for the first time. So beyond creating and manifesting, the magician can really be about what makes you you. Like what are the things that you're really proud of that are part of you that make you feel really comfortable and stable. It can also just be like a big old yes from the universe in a reading, like yes, do it. You're in the right place at the right time, do the thing. It's typically not like a super rough path. It's generally fairly simple. You just need to follow the path. And if you get the magician reversed, I'm not going to go super into depth in these about reversals, but like some of the things that it might suggest, the reversal I don't think ever means the exact opposite or that it's not there. It means the energy is there but something's blocking it. So it could be, in this case, maybe you have some doubt in your skills and abilities. Like it might be saying yes, you can do it, but you don't trust that. It might be that you're missing some of the support you need to be able to manifest. Or sometimes, I don't see this as much, but it could be referring to like you're almost like showing off. You're using your skills too much in a way, or using them in a way that's kind of show-offy. So like the shadow side of the magician being like the street musician who's hustling people for money, maybe. Although I don't actually think of that as a bad thing, right? Like hustling people who have money out of their money. Is that bad? I don't know. So some examples. So I showed this one from the Numinous, which I can't get a good like lack of gloss on, but I like the way this particular card, you can see there's this real feeling of like pulling from above, of channeling. It's really powerful. I like this from the Sun and Moon. Yeah, it's hard to get it to focus, but this one from the Sun and Moon with the fire and the drums has a really nice feel. You can see in the sky, you've got the zodiac, and then there's the Ouroboros around it. From Thea's Tarot, this one I think really emphasizes creation. So you've got the plant in the magician's hand, sprouting up out of their hand. And then a couple of sort of more modern takes. This one is from the Silicon Dawn, so you can see with the keyboard. I really like this because I think for a lot of us, writing, even like social media could be, really your thing. Creating through the keyboard. And then this one from the Next World, you have, I'm very bad with angles with this particular camera, but you can kind of see, you've got the stack of books. So I think like the stack of books here kind of representing the skills or the tools that this person already has, and then turning them into something with both the notebook, and then also this looks to me like kind of an artist portfolio. So thinking about writing and art as ways that you can use that magician energy. And then the last one I'm going to show is from Osho Zen. I'm going to use these cards sometimes because I think their keywords are really interesting and often different. So existence. One, it's just a beautiful image, but I think it really taps in for me to the idea, the version or the interpretation of it being about like really being you, being who you are. So this doesn't feel as much like a creating, manifesting energy, but it definitely feels like I am here kind of thing. So don't forget to like and subscribe because we will be doing all 78 cards. Leave a comment below if you have any questions. Does this match your interpretation of the magician? What are some other ideas you have about this card? I would love to hear from you.